Hey everybody, welcome back with some Evolution Legends. So I've been getting some requests to do an overview of the factions. So I thought I'd start off tonight with Polaris and give you guys my thoughts and my experience with this faction. I'll probably do a video series and do a video for each faction. So let's go ahead and jump in. So starting with this faction, it's a pretty good faction. It's probably not as good as Abyss or Waste, but they got some pretty good heroes in here that I like a lot. I'm not going to talk a lot about the blues and the purples here, but if there's a good purple or for early game, I'll mention it. So in this case, I would say like Paladin is pretty good for this faction. Really good tank early on. I think you start with him if I recall correctly, but he has the skill here called Stun Strike, which attacks the front row, does some pretty decent damage, but also has a 25% chance to stun an enemy. So CC is really important in this game, and this is some early game CC that you'll have. So definitely want him in your lineup early on. He'll hold his own. Okay. So let's scroll down. Let's take a look at him at the mythic level. Let's start with Polaris here. Polaris is a really fantastic single target direct damage dealer. Really has some great skills that help her mitigate damage and gives her a little bit of survivability, but as well like just some really awesome burst damage. So let's take a look at her skill set. Halo Slash, active skill, wields the Blade of Judgment and Mercy, dealing 360% of attack to the current target. If this attack kills the target, Polaris instantly receives 100 energy. So what that means is like when she does her ultimate and she'll drop a sword on an enemy. If it kills the enemy, she'll basically refill her energy bar, so her next attack will be another ultimate. Pretty sweet ability. Passive skill, carry 3 Halo Swords at the start of battle. When performing a basic attack, cast 1 Halo Sword that deals 230% damage and crits against dungeon and abyss heroes. So definitely pretty good ability, especially if you're running Malistor in your lineup. If it guarantees a crit when it hits, that's basically what Malistor does. Is if one of his allies crits, he has a chance to follow up with an attack right after that. So definitely a good synergy there between those two heroes. Halo Fusion, passive skill, holy damage increased by 100%, 100% chance to gain a Halo Sword at the round's end. Can't have more than 3. So really just a passive that keeps her Halo Swords up and replenishes them. So very useful. And then Sacred Asylum, passive skill, when taking an attack, expend 1 Halo Sword to defend against this attack, reducing its damage by 70%. I mean, that's a pretty significant damage mitigation. So again, this is just part of her skill set that adds to her survivability. Again, really great hero. Definitely recommend giving her a try and seeing how she works in your lineup. Okay, next. Let's take a look at Spirik. Spirik is really cool. I love the animation and artwork on this character. One of the great things about Spirik is most of Spirik's abilities add burn damage. So if you're looking to do like some type of burn, like dot damage build, this is definitely one of your go-to heroes. So let's take a look here. Active skill, Flame of Annihilation, casts a Flame of Annihilation dealing 90% of attack damage to all enemies with a 50% chance to dealing 90% attack burn damage for 3 rounds. So basically, yeah, so it does 90% of attack damage up front to all enemies, and then there's a 50% chance that it'll do an additional 90% attack burn damage for 3 rounds. So really great. Again, adding that dot damage over time. It has some nice synergies with other heroes like Ungriol or Breckum, which some of their abilities basically increase burn damage. So if these dots are stacked up on an enemy, that damage really starts to add up. So really good DPS output. Passive skill, Flame Strike. Basic attacks become attacks that deal damage to 2 to 3 random heroes, with a 50% chance to deal 70% of the attack burn damage for 3 rounds. Really cool ability. Attacks 2 to 3 enemies. Again, adds more stacks of burn damage. What I really like with this ability, one of the things I've been doing with Spirik on my alt account is equipping Spirik with the Arctic Heart. And the Arctic Heart gives your basic attacks a chance to freeze the enemy. So if Spirik here is doing 2 to 3 random, hitting 2 to 3 random heroes with that equipped, in theory could freeze 3 enemies with one attack. So pretty cool. Nirvana, passive skill, gives immunity to burn damage. When killed, Spirik turns into an egg. At the round's end, Spirik enters Nirvana and is reborn, recovering 100% HP. This could only trigger once per battle. Yeah, this is a pretty cool ability. Just basically when she dies, turns into an egg form. When she hatches, she comes back with 100% of her health. And this third skill adds 100% energy when she's reborn and gains 70% attack for 2 rounds. So yeah, when you've got her leveled up this high, basically when she dies, goes into egg form, comes back, full health, full energy bar, and an extra 70% attack for 2 rounds. So she could really come through in clutch when the rest of your heroes are dead. So pretty cool hero. I like her a lot. Definitely give her a try. Leave your thoughts on what you think about her. Okay. The next hero, Dominik. Basically a support hero. I've seen a lot of builds, endgame builds, using Dominik. He has a lot of utility in terms of overall healing, removing debuffs, things like that. So let's just take a look at his skills and we'll talk through it real quick. Sacred Recovery restores 140% of attack HP to 3 weakest allies and increases target's damage reduction by 15% for 2 rounds. So again, just keeping your heroes alive, healing them, also mitigating damage. Pretty great ability, especially late game. You're going to need that extra health because your enemies are like way overstated and hit pretty hard. When Dominik's HP is below 30% and is attacked, all control effects active on him will be dispelled, and he will restore 200% of attack HP and 30 energy to all allies. So this triggers once. I think this is why a lot of people tend to run him in the front line alongside the tanks, because he's going to take that damage up front, and then once he hits 30% or below and takes his next attack, burst heal, plus he's gonna give everyone 30 energy towards their ults. So that's a pretty powerful effect. Basically mitigating a whole bunch of damage and then getting your allies to be able to ult sooner. Faith Power, passive skill, HP increases by 45%, attack increases by 25%. Obviously, great buff. Since most of his abilities are based off his attack power, so increasing attack by 25% just increases his overall healing ability. Halo Flash, passive skill, when casting Sacred Recovery and Dead Rising, will also cast a rejuvenation that restores 40% attack to HP allies for 3 rounds. Really neat ability. It's not super powerful, but it's nice to just have that added ability, sort of heal over time effect on your allies. So it just could, sometimes that might give you enough health to last an extra round and getting an extra attack in, which can make the difference between like winning and losing. So again, really good hero. I haven't used him a lot. I used him early game and moved away with him just because of the RNG factor of like what I was drawing at the time. Definitely want to take him to Mythic and give him a try for myself at some point. Okay. Next hero, let's talk about Breckum. I love Breckum. I love Breckum's art. He's just awesome looking, just this Groot looking guy, and I love that little like lantern hanging off his right shoulder. Just think it's really cool. Really great hero. Has a lot of utility, like CC ability. He has a lot of counter attacks. Has some abilities that synergize with Spirit with perlem damage. So let's take a look. Wild Vine active skill releases vines dealing 150% of attack damage to 2 random front row targets and targets behind them, with a 35% chance of binding the target for 1 round. Bound targets cannot move, with burn damage taken increased by 15%. So again, great like tank hero, taking a lot of damage, protecting the back line, but also providing that utility of like crowd control for the enemy team. So really cool ability. Those vines come in handy. And again, if you're gonna try to do like a burn build and test that out, this is somebody you want to consider having in your lineup because of that 15% increase in burn damage. Okay, Jungle Fury, passive skill. HP increases by 50%. When attacked, has a 50% chance of counterattacking, dealing 300% of attack damage to the target. Just a really great ability. The counterattacks he does, you'll see as you get higher level and you fight, battle against the enemy. It seems like he counterattacks almost every single time. So these guys are, Breckum can get really tough. So all that extra damage really just starts to add up. So he's just awesome. Stout Cane, passive skill, 40% chance to bind target with Cane for 1 round when counterattacking. Has an 80% chance to trigger against aggressive heroes. I believe aggressive heroes, what they mean by that is just attack heroes. I'm assuming, that doesn't count towards tanks or support heroes. But yeah, again, this is just buffing his chance to CC. And then this is really nice. He's got a self-heal. Passive skill restores 12% of his max HP at the round's end. Just, again, adding to that tankiness of him. So, really awesome tank. There's obviously better tanks in the game, like Kronos and whatnot. But if you're building a Polaris team, definitely want to have this guy in your lineup, in my opinion. Okay. Regandor. I think that's how you pronounce that. Not going to spend a lot of time on him. He's just a weak hero overall. I don't see him in a lot of lineups. I'm sure like some people are having some success with him. I haven't used him very much, so I can't really give my opinion on him. I'm just saying, like, based on what I've seen in PvP and some of the top tier players, I just don't see him a lot. And I think part of the problem is that his ability to just do things like bleed damage, which it's not a mechanic that the developers have invested in a whole lot right now. This may change over time, so maybe when he gets buffed or there's other characters added in that maybe play off that bleed damage, maybe that's time to come revisit him. So just read through his skills real quick. Wing Scatter unleashes wing blades, dealing 200% of attack damage to front row targets and an additional 20% attack bleed damage for 4 rounds. Again, 20% damage for 4 rounds. It's not a whole lot. Griffin Zephyr has a 50% chance of counterattacking when attacked, casting a Zephyr that deals 100% of attack damage to the front row targets. Doesn't trigger when controlled. And as you know, CC is really big in this game, so he's probably going to be under CC a lot, and this just isn't going to really be that impactful. Wing Armor, HP increases by 55%, armor increases by 30%. Great. And then Wing Whirlwind. Griffin Zephyr has a 50% chance to deal an additional 40% of attack bleed damage for 4 rounds. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say on him. I don't think he's that great. If you disagree, leave a comment. I'd love to talk about it. Let's see. Ohm again. Yeah, don't love the artwork on him. He's just got a weird skinny neck thing going on here. I don't know. Omegon's another one. Like, he's pretty good early game. Maybe a little bit into the mid game. Just he casts shields on your allies, so adds a bit of damage mitigation. So he might be worth running if you don't have a better alternative. So he's not awful, but as you get into some of the higher tier games and enemies and stuff like that, I think he kind of falls off, and you'll probably end up replacing him pretty quickly. Thunder Smite summons Golden Lightning, dealing 180% attack damage to front row targets. Deals an extra 60% attack damage to dungeon and abyss heroes. Sacred Shield at the round's end adds a Sacred Shield for self and 1 to 2 random allies, worth 8% of Omega's max HP, lasting 1 round. Yeah, again, this is his biggest value, I think, is just adding the shields. And the thing is, there's artifacts you can get that'll do this, right? At the beginning of a match, it'll shield up your entire team with a much stronger shield than this 8%. Of his max HP. So, yeah. Holy Dragon Skin, HP increases by 30%, control immunity increases by 30%, and skill damage reduction increases by 30%. Yeah. Allies protected by Sacred Shield receive 20% lower damage when hit with a crit. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good, but it's not great. Yeah, like I said, this hero, you'll find some utility in him early on, and he might help you advance some levels, but eventually I think you'll end up replacing him with somebody better. Okay, moving on, and finally we have Iredell, the Archer, the newest hero to this faction. Really cool hero, does really good single target damage to Polis. But has the added poison dot damage effect. So I'm really looking forward to trying this hero out with a couple of different builds, particularly like alongside Medusa, and seeing if she can help Medusa output some more damage. All right, let's take a look. Arrow Shower fires 9 arrows at the enemy, each arrow dealing 80% of attack damage. Not a ton of damage up front. 80% attack damage isn't like huge, but she's hitting a lot of enemies, so it's kind of an AoE. And again, if she's applying poison with those, which you'll see in one of her passives, it does, you're just basically adding stacks of poison, and then that's really going to help Medusa trigger her ability of firing all that poison damage, bursting all that poison damage at once it hits 4 stacks. Arrow Gale. After a basic attack, there's a 50% chance of casting Arrow Gale, dealing 240% of attack damage to current target and an enemy behind it. This is really great for trying to burn down targets behind in the back line early game. So definitely, this is probably one of her most powerful attacks outside of the dot damage she does over time. So the longer she lives, this plus the dot damage, she puts out a lot of DPS. Hunter's Eye, attack increased by 50% and precision increases by 100%. Yeah, just some buffs for her at this level. And then Poisoned Arrow. When an attack hits an enemy, there's a 50% chance of it being toxic, dealing 70% of the attack poison damage to an enemy over 2 rounds. So yeah, again, so once she gets leveled up to this point, like that past skill, you have that chance to add those poison stacks. In conjunction with Medusa, they just synergize really well, and together I think they could do a lot of damage. So for me and my count, I'm just trying to get her leveled up right now, so that she can, I could throw her in there and test her out with Medusa. So that's all I have for now for this faction. If you have any questions or feedback, if you disagree with anything I said, or have some other ideas of how some of these heroes can be used, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a like, sub if you like the video. Leave your comments in the comments section, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.